Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Mates podcast. I am Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey man, great to see you as always, mate. So today we're back with another podcast, episode 59, I believe, and I'm really excited for this one, man. I'm really excited, and I'm going to pass over to Callum to explain what movies we're going to be talking about because it is a Bill and Ted episode. So what movies could we talk about then, buddy?
Yes. So after around nearly 30 years of waiting, we're finally getting Bill and Ted 3, Bill and Ted Face the Music. So in celebration of that film coming out, we decided to go through and rewatch in my case, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. So I'd definitely seen Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I'm not sure about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but for me, this was a bit more of a nostalgic trip, film-wise. For you, Matthew, this was your first watch, right?
Yeah, man. First watch for both, and I think throughout my review, it's just going to be it's going to be a lot of comments on how in a similar stretch to how I spoke about Back to the Future and how it sort of had a future nostalgia for me, where I watched it for the first time and yet had nostalgia for it. I think this is definitely going to be the same here. I had a blast with these films. It might be different to your opinion, but
Yeah,
I'm super excited.
weirdly, you know, uh, certainly Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey was a not a big part of my childhood, but it was certainly present there. It's one of the oldest films that I remember seeing as a child,
Hmm.
and sort of one of the more older audience friendly films that I saw as a child. And I expected to have this like deep sense of nostalgia, and there are scenes here and there, but aside from that, I pretty much despise these two films, and I feel like people will probably tell me I like missed the point of the films, that it's about like you know carelessness and things working out for absolute buffoons, but I just wasn't into it.
That's
I
fair.
just wasn't
That's fair.
into it.
It's definitely not for everyone. It's definitely not for everyone. And yeah, like this is the first Keanu Reeves film that we reviewed since the Toy Story 4 days, I think. So it's been a while since we've spoken about a movie with him in it. That was over a year ago.
Yeah, he's definitely recently he's doing sort of nostalgia bait films. He's doing Bill and Ted Face the Music, and Matrix 4
Matrix.
is coming out,
Yeah.
I think next year or 2022. But either way, like, have you seen the Matrix films?
I haven't I've got them on Blu-ray, but I've never watched that. So I sort of bought them recently so to and I hope that I'd watch them someday, and hopefully we'll cover it in the podcast as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. A nice trilogy is sort of nice and convenient for
Concise.
our kind of reviewing.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice and concise. I've seen the first film. I was not a huge fan, and based on not enjoying those, I imagine I will not enjoy two and three because I've heard they're a significant step down.
Yeah.
So I haven't actually seen a huge amount of Keanu Reeves films, but these are certainly the first ones that I had seen back in my
Yeah.
childhood. So did you want to start with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Let's
Because
do
I
it, bro.
imagine that neither of us have a huge amount to say about either films. Because I would argue that in sort of the vein of the characters of Bill and Ted, these films are quite laid back.
Mm,
Not
sure.
much is
Yeah.
going on in them.
No, not what.
You know,
Yeah.
so and I think the two films are quite similar. I feel like it could be a two-part one film really. Like it could be
Yeah,
like the
absolutely.
first and second
Yeah.
half of the same film.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So I'm just happy to go by your remarks, bro, and I'll fill in where I can.
Okay, so we'll start by talking about the characters of Bill and Ted themselves, because these are if you haven't seen these films, you should definitely go and watch them before you hear us talk about them. But these characters are like the inherent bro character, where they're just at parties. They're like these guys would be the head of a fraternity in America. They would just be that their entire life and personality would be about drinking and being a bro and hanging out and being cool.
Smoking
Uh,
weed.
yeah, so in their mind, they're cool, but from an outside perspective, they're just like dumb fools who like aren't good at anything. And I just wondered, like, I think that is immediately apparent in the sort of demeanor and voice that Keanu Reeves and Alex Winters decide to inhabit in this film. They decide to have these particular voices. And I was just wondering, for you, was that a little too much? Did you think that was too obvious a choice?
I tell you what, buddy. I watched the trailer for. I was watching a lot of Keanu Reeves interviews recently because he's an actor I want to get to know more about because I think he's had a very interesting career. Like you said, he started off, I would say sort of the 90s and then early 2000s. He was at his peak, but then he sort of disappeared for like a good decade, and only now he's sort of having a recent boom of success. So it's a weird one. And I was listening to his voice in the trailer for Bill and Ted Face the Music, and he's just doing his natural voice in there, which is really weird. for some lines in the trailer. And here the voices, I thought they were very over the top, but that for me, this is the whole film. Like there are so many like whoas and dudes. There are so many of that, and it's I don't know if it's see. In a lot of my notes, Bonnie, to be honest with you, I find it impossible to criticize it because I think it is so self-aware, but if not, I don't know if it's a parody of itself. Like I can't tell if this is a serious project or it's like a take the piss project. I really can't.
Yeah, I think I definitely have to respect the performances of Alex Winters and Keanu Reeves because I definitely think that they are those characters. Their
Sure.
performances are perfectly mimicking what those characters are meant to be. It's just that what those characters are meant to be, I despise. And I don't think the film is self-aware whatsoever. I think they're trying to make like high art. Like I don't think this film is like, oh yeah, let's put like the two dumbest, most unlikable characters in a film and just have good things happen to them. And like they're insanely lucky. They have the ride of their lifetime. They have the best time that anyone has
Sure.
ever had
Sure.
just through dumb luck, and that they save the universe with their song, with their shit band. I don't think that this film is condemning that and saying like, look how dumb this is. They're saying like, oh, if you're a cool '80s dude, this could happen to you. Which is
Yeah.
not a message that I respect.
Yeah, you tell you what, buddy. One thing I really do like about this film franchise, or just this film in general, is it kind of has a similar tone to me to Back to the Future, in the sense that well, I mean, both are time travel films for a start, but also there's an element of like just like a free spirit and the child. I think that a lot of these films are embracing your inner child, and I definitely think that's a main theme of this film. I think it's clear that these characters, they are quite immature, and stuff like that. And as the film goes, I think it has a great sort of retro feel to it. It definitely has its own goal and its own vision. Maybe that's due to the time period, like late 80s, early 90s. Like that was it's a very of its time film, if you know what I mean. But it's a
The
really hard.
homophobic slurs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that but I
Uh,
will admit, that in this, I think it's in the second film as well. That there's some
yeah.
inappropriate words used. That's dodgy. Like that is dodgy
Me and my
territory.
brother just watched that. I was like, oh, is there anything redeemable about these characters? And like, I was already thinking that, and then in that moment, I was like, no.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, in that moment, I can 100%, I'm trying to understand. It's stuff like that. Maybe the film hasn't aged well, but in most instances, I think it has aged well. To be honest.
yeah. And speaking of not aging well, we can talk about the effects within the film because
Mm.
as a time travel film, there will inherently be time travel involved, and I think sort of the moment where they travel back using the phone booth, it is visually very similar to Back to the Future. Uh, and I sort of think that they actually do nearly as effective as a job as in creating like this time travel vehicle with the phone booth as Back
I
to the Future
agree.
did with the DeLorean, like associating this visual with this franchise. But the one effect that is used unfortunately frequently that does not hold up whatsoever is them traveling through the circuits of time. The sort of time tunnels that the phone booth
Yeah,
moves
yeah.
moves through.
It's not great, man. It's
It's
not
it,
great.
it's a rough visual to watch,
It
and they
is. No,
really
it
commit
is.
to it in the sequel as well.
Yeah, and we've sort of mentioned Back to the Future. I think this film adopts a very similar tone to Back to the Future, but also it reminds me of like a really silly, goofy episode of sort of Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant era Doctor Who, and in a weird way. I don't know if you saw that as well, but I mean the phone box time travels is just completely ripped off from that, I suppose. Um, but yeah, like there's a lot of this, a lot of these films is okay. We'll tell ourselves in the future to remind ourselves to bring this something back so that we can defeat this enemy in the present or whatever. A lot of these films, that the third act is, well, I say a lot of them, both of the films, the third act is that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And in a way, like obviously that wouldn't make sense, I suppose. Well, from my understanding, it wouldn't make sense, but I don't know, maybe it would, I don't know. But time travel, well, we've went into it so
yeah.
many times here in the
I think
podcast.
that's the moment where it's definitely self-aware because it's like they are saying this is dumb, this would not work. They say, oh yeah, let's remember like a wheelie bin, and then it just drops from the sky. Because like
That's
there's no
quite
way
funny. I
to have
like
set
that.
that up. I think that is where I don't think the film is self-aware in the characterization of Bill and Ted. I think they are like these are cool '80s dudes. Surely you, a cool '80s dude watching this film, is gonna
Yeah.
like these characters.
Do you think it tries
I
to do a
think that
Breakfast
is
Club? Do you think it tries to do a Breakfast Club like the character Bender from that film? Like, do you think
I
they
was
try
gonna
to do
say
that?
yeah, I really like I really see shades of the character of Bender in, I would say, Ted especially. You know,
That's a good point.
visually with like the long
The
black
long
hair
hair.
and even
That's a
you
great
know, the
point.
homophobic slurs. I was just like classic Bender.
Classic. Yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, man, this film, like we see Bill and Ted, for their history assignment, they go back in time to, acquire these historical figures, and it got me wondering, what historical figure would you most like to meet and why?
So you certainly have to balance it because you know there's ones from hundreds of years ago, and you know for a fact that you know they were great people who had great accomplishments, but they're like they're gonna be bigoted in some regard.
Hmm.
You know, if you sit down with like you know one of the great war heroes, you know, or someone you know one of the presidents from way back in the day, you know they were probably racist or homophobic
Yeah,
or bigoted in some manner. So historical figure, um, ooh, I don't know. Could I hear from you first?
I think this isn't maybe the person I would go for, but one who's floating in my head at the minute is John Lennon, because I think his ideas were very ahead of its time. And I think all three of us would get along in a political and spiritual level. He seems like a pretty calm guy and great music, of course. Apart from John Lennon, I'm trying to think. Um, hmm. I'd like to meet sort of I don't know. It's an interesting one. It's a question I haven't actually considered myself. To be honest with you, I'd love to meet like a young sort of either De Niro or Brando or Scorsese, just to see what like the film industry was like back then. With the like the nitty gritty gangster films, and obviously like The Godfather and stuff. So I'd like to meet some of those characters and see what it was like. What about yourself, mate? Any ideas floating there?
Yeah, I like the idea of meeting a Beatle. I mean, John Lennon, I think would irritate me, just because you know he seemed to be. I mean, you know, he was a confident man who knew his worth. You know, he knew that he was a talented guy, and expressed that. You know, he would say that you know the Beatles were immensely talented and that he was the best of the Beatles. So you know, he would have been, I assume, an arrogant man, but you know, he may have had the talent to back it up. I mean, he was obviously you know a incredibly talented man. Uh, you know, but I mean, if I were to meet a Beatle, it'd be George Harrison for me.
Good
Just purely
shout,
for
yeah.
while my guitar gently weeps. You know, if it was a brief discussion where you could just share how much you appreciated their talent, I think that that could definitely make for a
That's a great
nice
shout, man.
interaction.
For sure, man. That's a great shout.
I don't have much to say about this film. You know, just narrative wise, I don't think that I could ever picture someone doing like a curricular report, you know, where they're speaking to a school about something educational that warrants a round of applause and a chant of "We want more." I cannot imagine
Yeah, I can't imagine that.
anything
That never
anything being
happened.
put in front of a school where people ask for more.
Why did that never happen to us for our English presentations, Callum?
Yeah, I don't know, Matthew. You know, I just thought, you know, the last English presentation probably would have been in fifth year that we last
Good
did.
times,
Uh,
good times.
I don't think we've never been in a class together until like GCSE. So we've never actually done a shared presentation together.
Yo,
But
no.
last presentation I remember giving, that wasn't English. The last presentation I remember giving was in GCSE English, and we were doing a room 101 style thing.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, man,
And
I
I just
do. I
remember getting like
do.
nearly laughed out of the place because like my trousers kept falling down and I had to like violently yank them up. Uh,
Forgot about that.
thinking back on that, do you remember what your three things were? I remember mine were birds, you know, obviously flying shading machines, no explanation needed. Surveillance, you know, nanny state, don't like being watched, and people talking in the cinema. I've
It's a
shared
good shot.
many of you on this podcast. You know,
It's a good
I don't
shot.
think there's any need to explain. Do you remember what yours were?
Mine were Kim Jong Un,
Oh wow.
um, people who wear sunglasses indoors,
Oh yes, 100%.
and I think it was, I don't know, it was something basic like traffic or something like that. I don't know, but it's something like that. Yeah.
I know. I was marked down because apparently I just seemed much more passionate about the fact that I hate people talking in cinemas, and I do. If you do that,
I
you should be
know it's
fucking
a
ashamed of
folly.
yourself.
I know. Yeah. But I'm trying to think. One other thing I wanted to ask you about this film. Well, not really about the film. It was this Keanu Reeves' first big break because he looks pretty young here.
I suppose there could be arguments. This film had, financial success. It was critically, mixed to good. People felt okay about it. And then Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, it wasn't as much of a financial success. It wasn't as much of a critical success, but both of them received like big cult status.
Mm.
So and then after that film there was Point Break with Patrick Swayze, and then after that there was The Matrix, and I would say that his big break was The Matrix. I think that was the pivot of his career where he became a star. But with this film, I think this is his first big exposure, but I don't think it was his big career break. Just
Yeah,
yeah, I
it's
think that was The
interesting. He's
Matrix.
a really interesting guy that I want to know more about. But I don't have any other remarks to be honest with you, dude. I'd love to hear your rating if you're all finished as well.
Yeah, so the film had a charming tone, mildly amusing jokes, but the character themselves in this film, at least, I found neither amusing nor charming themselves. I really wanted to like the film, and it's a shame I didn't, because it seems like a lot of nothing. And it may be that it's just that they're lacking like adversity. It doesn't seem like there's no villain in this film, and I think that is rightly fixed in the next film. In this film, it really doesn't seem like there's any pushback. There's Ted's dad who wants to send him to military school, and that's why they need to be successful in this history report. But they have so many people helping them. The entire future depends on them having a good history report. So all the people that come back from the future are there to support them. And I feel like they had just too much support, and too many people cared about these absolute dickheads, doing well, when they really shouldn't. I wish that they just faded into obscurity, and I hope their band fails. So I'm
Fair.
gonna have to balance quality and enjoyment once again, which is usually reserved for films that I really despise. And I didn't watch this film and go like, ugh. I just went, I'm just really not having a good time here.
Yeah,
it was never a thing of like, this film is offending me. This is awful. I hate this. It was more just, oh, I really expected to enjoy this, and I'm just not feeling it. Like it
yeah.
was it was
I
I'm not
respect that.
feeling it. Not
I
I hate
respect that.
this.
Yeah.
So I would say quality wise, it's had a huge cultural impact. People love it. It has cult status. Keanu Reeves and Alex Winters are great. But there isn't really a story here in this film. At least I think Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is a huge improvement. So I would probably give the film quality wise a 9 out of 10, and enjoyment a 6.
Fair enough, mate. I thought that was a really splendid review, mate. I thought that was great. For me, I really love this film. It's, as I've talked about the future nostalgia in a similar sense to Back to the Future. I love their final presentation and the ending with the princesses. I think that's incredibly sweet as well. And yeah, it's a film that I think has really good rewatchability just because it's very popcorn film. I think you just watch it and just just not like there's not one of those films that like you question your own identity or something like that. It's just one of those films
Yeah.
you just watch. And
Like, just quickly, did you think that like the princess thing? Did you think that was an okay thing for Rufus to do, where he just brings back these two like he
oh
brings these
no,
two
not at all.
pulls them out of history and is like, here, these are your girlfriends now. You know, oh hey, like these are the only two men in this time period that understand time travel and understand the fact that you're from the past. So these are your boyfriends.
These are
You
your
have no
boyfriend.
other options. It seemed
Yeah,
very very sus.
it did. But no, for me, man, I had a great time with it. So have to give it a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. Um,
Wonderful.
but I suppose we should move on to our second and final film of the day, buddy.
Yeah, we're not used to doing episodes this short, with these few films. We've done episodes with like 22 films. So like to
Yeah,
these days, be talking about two films
yeah.
is a bit, out of left field. We don't normally do that. But with this film, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, I immediately found that I liked it more just because there was someone finally in Chuck de Nomalis that agrees that these dickheads should not be regarded as Earth saviors. Earth deserves better than to like find these two fucking idiots like as the figureheads of modern
I
society.
take it you were siding with him throughout the whole film.
Well, I mean, his methods were a bit confusing, because unless he decides like I don't really understand what his game plan is, because if he wants to create an alternate timeline where he wasn't born and then can like slot himself into this new timeline and take over, that's one thing. But it seems with most rules of time travel, and what would probably happen here is that he goes into the past, changes time, he returns. There's a new Chuck de Anomalous, born under different circumstances, he's maybe a different level of useful than the version here that time traveled. So time travel probably wouldn't exist without Bill and Ted. So he returns and he's wiped out of existence. So either way, he's not going to end up being Earth's savior in the way that Bill and Ted were. If
Sure.
he's going into the past and he's making a public declaration on TV, like, these are Bill and Ted, these are meant to be your saviors, I'm going to murder them. Like, when he returns to his future time, if that event was so integral in future culture, that scene where he's seen to murder them, when he goes into the future, people will just like arrest him or murder
Yeah,
him
everyone will hate him.
because he's just a public murderer. I don't know why he ever thought that he would come out of this like victorious.
Yeah. That being said, buddy, you mentioned it in the first review there. I think this is refreshing because we actually have a villain this time round. And it sort of reminds me a lot, and I know I've banged on about this. This movie is quite similar to Back to the Future 2 in the sense that there is more of a villain role as well with Biff in that film, and in this film, what's his name, Chuck?
Chuck, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's such a brilliant idea for a sequel, to be honest. It's really refreshing. And I must say, the robot faces and bodies, it looks magnificent, I think. I think it looks fantastic even today.
Yeah, when they pull their
They've got
their
abs.
torso apart. I was gonna say, like, have they just like CGI'd on abs because they're like, well, this whole shot's gonna be like visual effects anyway. Like let's give you like tearaway washboards.
Yeah. You know what, buddy? This is my favorite line in all of cinema, I think. It's when Robot Ted looks at a picture of his
Oh
of his
no,
face, he's like,
no.
dude, I've got a full-on robot chubby.
I just like I was watching this with my brother and I was like, this is a PG, and he's talking about like that is not appropriate in a PG film. Like, I was just that made me so uncomfortable. I was
It's
just like,
just the
I
word
watched this as a child.
it's just the word chubby. It's just I don't like it.
Yeah, but then it's forced that Bill's like, we'll sort out later, my friend. Like, let's move on. I was like, bruh, like, please
Fuck me.
please don't
Yeah.
make like this is meant to be like a pure franchise of just dumb fun.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
don't
It
make it
really
don't make it
escalated.
weird.
It really
Yeah,
escalated. But
you
yeah,
know, I did enjoy this film a lot more than the
so did
last
I.
one, and we talk about the characters of Bill and Ted in this film as opposed to the last film because they are equally bro-ish and foolish as they have been in the last film, which I did find tedious. But the one manner in which I found it funny was sort of their attitude towards time travel, where like you know,
You're all right.
I don't even know what I'm doing. But like evil Ted and evil Bill come to the past, and they're just like hi, you Bill and Ted, and they're just like okay, like they have absolutely no reservations or questions. They're
Yeah.
absolutely unfazed by it, and I guess that's just because they're too unintelligent to comprehend that this is a weird situation. They're just like, yeah, cool, sweet, that's fine.
Sweet. Yeah.
So
Regular day in my
but I
life.
did find that one small aspect funny.
Yeah. That being said, I really love the robot Bill and Ted versus the real Bill and Ted, and it really surprised me. They actually just genuinely just killed them off like 20 minutes in. I thought that was pretty funny, and I actually really love the makeup and the lighting change when they die. I think that's really
Yeah,
great and stuff. And to be honest, that whole segment is just really quite funny in my opinion. And
yeah.
yeah,
I
I
would
love
say
it.
like I would say that the game sequence with the Grim Reaper versus Bill and Ted is like the peak of the comedy of these two films. Like, it's probably
Yeah,
the
that's great.
only it's the scene that I most remember. Like, you sunk my battleship. Like, I have that memory from like 10 years ago, and it's still funny here in a widely unfunny franchise. Sorry, guys.
You're okay.
I
Your
feel like I
opinion
might
is
get
your
shit for
opinion.
this.
I respect it. And well, it kind of got me thinking. We see the Bill and Ted. They go into their own personal hell. Ted's is like it's like a pink room or something with a pink bunny, and Bill's is like his old grandmother kissing him. And what would be your personal room of hell? What would it be?
Ooh, um, because like these were sort of like their like childhood fears, and stuff that sort of you know like there was nothing like horrifically dark about these. They were just sort of their like pet peeves or their you know anxieties. So it would probably be me having to take an exam whilst on a paddleboard. That would probably be
Yeah,
the level that they're pitching it at. That
yeah.
would probably be
Mine's quite
where I
similar.
would find myself.
Mine's year nine swimming.
Terrifying, absolutely
Terrifying.
terrifying.
Absolutely hated it, man. But no, that's a good shout, man. Exams while paddleboarding. That's a brutal one.
yeah, not absolutely not a fan of paddleboarding. I really thought I'd be better than I was.
We've
And
mentioned
then
it in the
when I
pod
was out
before,
there,
haven't we?
we've mentioned it on pod. I believe it was episode 50. In the Getting to Know Us episode. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. It'll
Absolutely.
be in the must see movie mates playlist. But yes, I did not have a pleasant time with my one and only time paddleboarding. I really expected to be better at it. I was not. Like, have you ever like grossly misjudged how good you would be at something?
Oh, all the time, all the time. Podcasting for a start. I remember that first episode. Like I thought, I've watched a lot of podcasts. I can do this, and then I just went in with the first episode, and I look back at that episode. I was like, oh god, I was so awkward in that. I like
Do you
you
think
would
there's been an improvement?
you would make a good point, and I'd just be like, yep, and then we just move on. like it was. I think we've gotten better though.
Yeah, I think that there's obviously we still have the hurdle of like not being in the same room together, so there isn't the same amount of bouncing off of each other, and there's more interruptions and stuff. And I find that listening to every other podcast that's recorded over Zoom, because you can't clock the other person's like social cues like when they're about to speak, so you
Yeah,
sort of you throw your point out and potentially
yeah.
rudely like cut off what they're trying to say.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. Hopefully, we'll be back together recording soon sometime, buddy.
Yeah, and talking about the things that we expect to be good at, we were talking to our friend Anna the other day, and I sort of said that I'm sort of a dangerous mix of like wild, like extremely competitive and not very good at a lot of things. So I'll go in and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna kick your ass at ping pong or like air hockey or something, then I just get absolutely destroyed, and I'm like, fuck's sake, like, and then I'll, like, with like air hockey, every time you play, you have to pay, and I will honestly just like pay £5, like, I'll be
Get
like,
the
okay,
victory.
I'll get the next one just to make sure that I can like, keep them there, I'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, but let's just kill 5 more minutes. I'll pay, don't worry, but I will beat you this time. I will
Yeah.
probably I will play something and I will try really hard at it until I finally get the win. And I feel like it's probably just people taking pity on me and letting me
Oh,
win.
like one thing I'm not great at is like not going on my phone during a movie. I literally every movie recently in the last couple of months I've been on my phone for a good portion of it, and it's not a good habit to
Yeah,
get
is
into.
any of that taking notes, or
Some of it,
or
I'll
do you
be
take
honest with you,
notes but then
some
you're
of it
also
is just scrolling through YouTube or scrolling through news or articles or something like. So, but most of it is notes. Like most of it's
yeah.
notes. But
I feel like we've agreed on like what films that we've watched recently have been like masterpieces, like with Goodfellas and well, and like with Heat, like I didn't find myself getting
yeah, like
distracted
Graduate
once, even though
or example or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, even though those are all really long films, I didn't find myself distracted once. But with The Rescuers Down Under or something, it's a perfectly serviceable film, but it's completely unnoteworthy. It's not worthy of your attention. If you were a child, that would probably grip you. But like as I said, I was just writing a CV,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
updating my
no,
A level
fair.
results.
Yeah, yeah, sure,
I,
sure.
I couldn't give a shit.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. You're right there. You're right there, and like it's something like I remember. I know we're going off a bit of tangent here, but it's fine. It's fine. And I remember like the first couple I think it was up to the rom com episode. The rom com episode was the first time I ever made notes for a podcast, and like it's weird. Like I imagine if we were did notes for the MCU movies now, like Christ, how long would that be?
It would be like a 10 episode
Oh, really?
series,
Oh,
I would
like too
imagine.
much long, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, back to Bogus Journey, I suppose.
Yes.
Any more
So,
remarks, mate?
I think really, the thing that I liked about this was something was happening all the time. In the first film, it was very loose plot. It was they need to get figures from history. So there's, a 25, 30-minute sequence of them just going through, and it's nearly a silent film where they're just, going there, like picking up people from history, putting them in the box, being like, excellent, dude. I was like, I couldn't give a fuck. But in this film, there's something happening constantly. They died, then they played then they went to hell, and then they played the games with death, and then they built robots. There was something happening all the time. And like in the first third of this film, this film had topped everything that happened in the first film. More happened in the first third of this film than the entirety of the first.
No, I'd agree. I would agree with you on that one, mate. And one thing I really do love about this film is when like Ted becomes his dad, and that was really funny. And but one thing I will say, and I was listening to a bit of the Weekly Planet those thieving bastards copied our idea for this
Yeah,
this week.
constantly, me and Matthew,
It's
like
weird.
it is obviously just weird coincidences, but we'll put out a Back to the Future episode, then Chris Stockman 2 days later does a Back to the Future review. We put out a Raiders, we put out an entire Indiana Jones podcast. 2 days later, Chris Stockman does that.
Yeah,
We
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 see
did
you, Chris.
we did our crime episode. We talked about The Fugitive. 2 days later, CinemaSins puts out a video.
This is
Obviously
weird.
there
It happens to us.
obviously theirs has obviously CinemaSins is a comedy show. They write their scripts weeks in advance, and they're not looking at
Yeah.
the humble movie mates from Northern Ireland. But it's just a really weird
It's weird,
coincidence.
yeah, it's
And
weird.
then
It's
and
funny.
then
Like,
this week it makes sense because
oh yeah, yeah.
okay for the Weekly Planet doing Bill and Ted and Project Power, that makes perfect sense because Bill and Ted 3 is coming out soon. Project Power came out recently. That makes a lot of sense. But I've been wanting to talk about the Fugitive for an entire year, and then I just picked a random date for us to talk about it, and then 2 days later, CinemaSins has a video on it. Like, where is the connection? Like, there was no rhyme or reason to that happening.
It's weird. That's such a weird coincidence, man. Like, you know, it's so weird because I remember when we started the podcast, right? And this is a different point entirely, but I remember we started it. A good YouTuber that we both like, BHL Hudson. He had a podcast going for a good year before we did, and it's weird because that podcast we obviously number of episodes doesn't count for quality over quantity, right? But it's weird, like we've put out more episodes now than they have in 2 years, and that's not me saying slagging off the content or anything. It's just weird how that circle goes, isn't it? Like now that we're doing a podcast and they're doing a podcast and stuff, and I don't think our contents overlap with them that much because theirs is a very different podcast to ours, and that their podcast is fantastic. Definitely go check out the Pretty Pan podcast, guys. It's great. But it's just weird how YouTube works. Like, you see content that you see other people doing stuff as well, and it's nice to hear a different perspective. Like, Chris Stuckman is always one of my favorite reviewers and stuff like that, and Jeremy Jans as well. I've been getting into a lot more
Yeah.
recently.
So that was a tangent. You were talking about the Weekly Planet, and you had listened to their Bill and Ted
Yes,
episode.
sorry,
But
yes,
were you
sorry.
making a point off the back of
Yes.
that?
So, one thing that James said in that podcast was he thinks this is no, sorry. I think he said he enjoys this film more than the first. Either James or Mason said that, but James said it doesn't work as a standalone film, and I actually would agree with that. It just doesn't work as a standalone film. I think if you just came into this as a first viewer, you'd be like, "What the fuck?" Like you'd be like, "What's going
Yeah.
on here?"
No, I mean, yeah. If you're talking about the idea that in the future their absolutely terrible band Wild Stallions will reunite, will unite the galaxy in harmony. It makes no sense without. I mean, it barely makes sense having seen the first film because
Yeah,
there's no
true.
logical reason as to why that would happen. And they make a very offhanded reference to that. Near the end of the last film, they explain that away, and then Rufus is like, "Can we jam?" So
Yeah.
it's very weird. Even having seen the first film, but yeah, I definitely agree with you. If you watch the second film in isolation, which I imagine I did as a child, but I was probably just looking for some dumb fun, and this is exactly what that is. So I probably accepted it for that reason. I mean, this film isn't as much dumb fun for kids as the first film. This has them going to hell, meeting the devil, and then
Getting
dying.
chubbies.
This is much less family friendly than the first film. But I do enjoy that for that element, and I think the character that really provides the comedy here is William Sadler as the Grim Reaper,
He's so
and
good. He's so
he is
good.
by far the best part of these two films. As I said about the sequence of them playing him in a series of games, it's the best comedic sequence in the two films. It's the peak of
I agree.
the entire franchise.
He sort of reminds me of the ghost. Is it Richmond or something from IT Crowd?
Yeah,
Yeah, he reminds me
yeah, I
really
definitely
is
agree.
very similar there, I think.
Yeah, and I was very happy to hear that William Sadler was returning. Because I thought that with nearly 30 years passing, and this was released in 1991. I thought that William Sadler may have died since.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's going to be a big blow to the franchise. And then I was so excited to hear that he was coming back, and I think that he will be the reason that the third one will succeed if it does, because I don't think that Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves carry this franchise. I think William Sadler is the best addition to this series.
I agree. I
Uh,
admit, so good.
yeah, because I mean, those are the only returning cast members really for the third film, because every time they love to recast the princesses. In the first film, it's these two actresses, then they're recast for the second film, and now they've been recast again.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I don't know what they have against these actresses, but
Mm.
we'll the only really returning cast members are,
I
the
think
the
Ted's
main
dad's coming
guys.
back as well.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, but like he's still kind of on Ted's case, and
Yeah.
I feel like watching two man children like, you know, like, just stumble around the earth and be like, oh, but like we're man children now, party on, dude. Like I don't think I'm gonna find it funny. Like I think it's gonna be even more embarrassing watching like middle-aged dudes do it. Like I think that's
Mm,
where they
yeah.
they want the comedy to arise from, but I don't think I'll get it.
I think it's going to be. I don't want to say it because I really want to enjoy it, but I think it might be a financial flop.
Yeah, I think the
Oh well, yeah, yeah,
coronavirus,
definitely that for sure.
may impact it negatively just because people don't go to the theaters, but also these cult films like don't do well really. That it's usually fan service. With Blade Runner 2049 is one of the best films I've ever seen. It bombed,
Did
just
do
because
bad,
no
didn't it?
one went
Yeah.
to see it, and that was in like peak cinema time. People loved going to the cinema in 2017. There's no reason why that didn't do well, other than the fact that the people who like Blade Runner like it because they're obsessed with sci-fi. They're big old nerds basically. I love Blade Runner. That's why I saw Blade Runner 2049.
Sure.
And I just don't think enough people were of that mentality. I mean, you still haven't seen it, Matthew?
I've got it on DVD. I'll watch it soon.
Yeah, please do
uh,
watch it. I mean, like the next time you're over at my house, we'll watch Dora and the Lost City of Gold, and we'll rewatch. We'll watch Blade Runner 2049.
yeah, I love how you changed it from rewatch to watch.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, had to change it for you.
But I don't have any more
If you
remarks.
want to hear us talk about the
Oh
Blade
yes,
Runner films and Matthew
episode
absolutely
11.
shit out his arse, check out episode 12, I believe,
Yeah, episode
or
12
episode
or something. Episode
11 or
11 or
something.
12, something like that, mate. Something like that. Um, I don't
Fucking
have any
shameful
more.
from you, but okay.
It was. It was. I agree. Uh, I don't have any remarks. Buddy, anything from you, mate?
No, I'd just love to hear your rating of the
No
film,
worries,
Matthew.
man. So I think this film, although it doesn't work as a standalone, I think it's a lot more creative. I think it's fantastic. So well done. I love the proposal scene as well. It's so cute, and I thought it was fantastic. I loved it so much, man. And I'd also give it a 9 out of 10. Yeah, what would you give it?
Yeah, I think that this film is much more self-aware. I don't think you could argue that it isn't when they like go to heaven and hell and then return to Earth and they fight their evil robot selves with shittier robot versions of themselves. Like you can't argue that this one is clearly self-aware. But the first film is called Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's barely an adventure. They go to like one place, have a bit of trouble, and then they just bring people back and they just win. They just win at life because they're dumb, cool party 80s dudes. There's no logic as to why these people should succeed in this universe
Sure,
whatsoever.
sure.
I despise the characters
Yeah,
themselves, not the films. I
yeah.
hate I hate Bill and Ted. I'll be honest, I
I
hate Bill and
respect it.
Ted.
I respect it.
Uh, but
Fair
in
enough.
this film, they have an excellent adventure for the first time. It is uh, accurate to call it a bogus journey, but this is their excellent adventure. This is the one that I enjoyed watching. I did not enjoy them. I enjoyed watching the experience. I loved William Sadler. He is by far the best part of these two films. He's hilarious. The game sequence where the battle
So
him in
good.
Twister and Battleship is comedy gold. I would give this film a 7.5, 8 out of 10.
That's great, man. No, I thought it was a really great review, Callum. I thought you were honest but also fair. I thought it was fantastic. But yeah, man, shall we hop into a bit of future episode chat?
I think with the future episode chat on this one at least, we should talk about Bill and Ted Face the Music, which is coming out
Go for it,
soon.
mate. Go
We,
for
we
it.
can talk about our expectations, hopes, and everything for that film. After I saw the first two films, I thought, these weren't for me, but maybe it was the era. I was like, often these like sort of nostalgic sequels come out, and they're an improvement on the original. Say like let's say Terminator Dark Fate, it was an improvement upon like Terminator Rise of the Machines,
Hmm.
as sort of a direct sequel to Terminator Judgment Day. Let's use that as an example. So I was like, I'm sure that this third film will be great. I was still optimistic. I watched the trailer. I'm not so optimistic. Have you seen the trailer
I
for Bill
have
and
seen
Ted
the
Face the
trailer,
Music?
man. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, they have the characters of Bill and Ted, and they're both raising teenage daughters. They have Billy and Thea, and I thought, okay, this can be a cool transition, a pivot for the characters where they have to raise these teenage daughters. The daughters will be interesting, unique characters, and they'll bring some feminism into the franchise. but it really just seems like they're doing bad impressions of their dads. Like the character of Billy, who's like it's confusing because they're the
Ted's
other
daughter.
person's
Yeah,
daughter.
yeah,
So Billy is Ted's daughter. So yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
Billy is Ted's daughter, and she was kind of just like she was doing the like party on dude stuff. So I really think what I hated about the characters of Bill and Ted, that might have been
Exemplified in this
leached from
film.
their characters. Their characters may be less annoying, but their daughters will have just taken that role
Sure.
on.
Yeah, no, I respect that, man. I'm looking forward to it nonetheless. And yeah, it's that reveal probably be out the end of next week, start of week after, maybe. Yeah,
We'll presumably watch it, a day, the day it comes out. So whenever it's first available to us, we'll watch it and get the review
absolutely,
out as quickly as possible. But to me,
absolutely.
when I watched the trailer, it really did just seem like a 90-minute adaptation of the episode of Rick and Morty Get Swifty. Where they're tasked with writing
Yeah,
this song that is,
yeah.
going to save their world from destruction. That is
It's true.
literally this plot.
That's so true.
So I think I'm going to be underwhelmed.
Yeah, no, hopefully not, man. Hopefully it'll be good. Like it's I saw the trailer. There's a lot of like CGI ness and stuff, and that's not really what this film is known for. These films are known for particularly. So I hope they stick to their roots and go for just a good a fun adventure and stuff. And hopefully Keanu Reeves is happy with the film and is happy. And also Alex Winters seems like a lovely guy as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully it's a successful project for them both. I'm a big fan of Keanu especially.
Yeah,
But
and they were in it clearly more for the fan service than for the paycheck this time, which is always what you want with a franchise,
absolutely,
especially this
absolutely,
nostalgic
mate.
return. I mean, like Harrison Ford clearly could not give a flying fuck about Blade Runner or Star Wars.
Yeah,
He's clearly so tired of those characters. He's like, please kill me. Give me my money, then please kill me.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Although I do really like Harrison Ford in the Rise of Skywalker. I thought that his cameo there was fantastic. It was my favorite scene of the film in there.
yeah, not hard to do. We were very generous with Rise of Skywalker when we saw it,
We
and then
were actually.
with a bit of I don't think we should like review. Should we review films like 5 minutes after we've seen them? Because I feel like usually we sit with them for a day or two, and we're like,
X-Men Dark
ah,
Phoenix,
we're
10
just
out of
like,
10.
that was shit, wasn't it?
You know what? One film that actually, in my opinion, has improved on is Birds of Prey. I actually quite like it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I gave it fairly good review. I really loved Black Mask. He was probably the best part of that film, and then I do think it was a regrettable decision to make him not return for a future movie.
I agree.
But
I agree, mate.
aside from that, I did enjoy everything about the film. The all fee. I mean, this just turned into Birds of Prey review. Well, we
Go
might
for it.
do a retroactive review if Matthew really feels he needs to redeem his opinions. But I quite like the all female soundtrack, especially the like Journey Smollett Bell singing "It's a Man's World" by
Mhm.
James Brown. But the one song that was a big letdown was Black Betty, because they had done a like truly horrible cover of that that
I
song.
think you mentioned that in the review, didn't you? Yeah, you said you didn't like it.
It needed saying. It needed saying.
Yeah, and you know what it is, man? It's crazy to think that was this year. Like that was February. That's
Yeah,
weird.
we've only seen two films in the cinema: Birds of Prey and Sonic the Hedgehog.
What
And
a what a duo.
I know I don't know about you. Those are the two films that I saw, and like
Same,
yeah,
no, I'm the
just
same. Oh,
cinema
bravo.
2020.
2021's gonna be rough, man. That's gonna be dodgy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward. Like, hopefully, we can get out to the cinema to see Tenet or the French Dispatch, directed by Anderson. I think is still meant to
Love
come out
Wes.
by the
Love
end of this
Wes.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, we can do a few Wes Anderson episodes because I know he's one of your favorite directors.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. But listen, man, what's going to be the next few episodes in the next few weeks for the viewers then?
Well, the next episode we'll be putting out. Well, we're doing a couple of mini reviews this week. We'll be doing Project Power. We'll be doing an American Pickle, and we'll optimistically this week have Cash back on, our good
Fingers
old friend
crossed.
who we had on for the Kissing Booth and the Kissing Booth 2. We'll not reveal what film we're talking about, but we can assure you it is a terrible Netflix romantic comedy. As
Absolutely.
Cash said, will be his ideal kind of films to talk about. So check, stay tuned in for that. That might be end of this week, start of next week. But definitely look out for that.
Absolutely. Well, listen, man, thank you for introducing me to two more films today, buddy. Always a pleasure recording with you. And thank you very much, everyone, who supported us recently. Be sure to check out our Disney Part 8 if you haven't already. That was our latest episode. And yeah, thank you so much, guys. Thank you very much, Callum. Take care, everyone, and bye bye.
Bye bye.